Hey guys, let's talk Beyond the Gates for today, July 27th, 2026. So we start this episode with Andre and Danny again, and Andre is again inspecting the champagne bottle, and I'm over the champagne bottle. Like, Andre, what the heck is going on? Or shut up. That's how I feel. But I digress. So he's looking at the champagne bottle, and Danny comes in, and she's like, "What's with you with the champagne bottle? You wouldn't drink any of it, but you staring at it like, make it make sense, right? The math ain't mathing." And so he was like, "Oh yeah, I noticed this intricate design on the bottle, on the label," and I'm like, okay, whatever. And so now they're trying to get distracted, but then they get a call from Pamela. Pamela was down at Uptown, and Kyle and Nicole were there having a date of sorts. They were having a date. That got sprayed right in my ear. Anyway, they were having a date, and um Pamela was like, "Oh my God, he's going to be my next model. Do you know how to ski? Blah, blah, blah." And he was like, "Well, I'm a doctor." And she was like, "Well, you can do both." Because Pamela is always on the lookout, always be looking. ABL, always be looking. But anyway, so she gets a phone call, and when she gets a call, then she calls Danny, and Danny asks Danny to come down to Uptown, and Danny is like, "Well, I'm being appreciated right now. I don't really want to come." And she was like, "Do you hear the tone in my voice? No, for an answer kind of tone." So she knows she has to come down. So she's like, "Well, can I bring Andre because I am a little inebriated and I can't really drive?" She's like, "Oh yeah, that's fine. He might want to hear this too." So then they go down to Uptown, and they go down to Uptown in some um I don't want to call her like a blogger, or yeah, she's a blogger. She wants to entertainment blogger. She wants to do a story on Danny. And so, they're talking about the marriage and talking about different things. And Andre is zoned out. And apparently, somebody is in Fairmount Crest and they're watching Andre. So, we have our little secret admirer situation going on Beyond the Gates as well. Meanwhile, Heather and Vanessa are down at Joey's casino, and they are like having a little tit for tat, and Heather is trying to be purposely misleading, and then it becomes like a game. And you know Vanessa assumes that she's the ex-wife because she said that they used to share a bed, and she's like, "Oh no, I'm not the ex-wife." And then comes out that she's the sister, and she's asking Vanessa if she's in love with her brother and whatever. And then, Joey comes in and is like, "You don't have to answer that." And so he was like, "We have reservations." And Vanessa invites Heather to go with them, and Heather was like, "Oh no, I can't go. I have a plane to catch." So she leaves, and then Joey was like, "Look, she's not to be trusted. If she ever comes back to town, I don't know when it could be days from now, it could be years from now. If she ever come back to town and she seems sketchy or something seems off, you need to let me know immediately, because Heather is not to be trusted." I'm glad he knows that about his sister. But anyway, so they go to Uptown and they run into Anastasia. And Anastasia, the snob of snobs, so she trying to throw shade at Joey because his hair is disheveled as well as his clothing, because him and Vanessa were in the car doing what he and Vanessa do best. And so his appearance is disheveled, and she's like, I'm gonna make a complaint because there are rules and protocols that need to be followed at the club. And he was like, "Well, the president took me out to lunch the other day, so let them know I said what's up," basically. when you go and make your complaint. So then she's, disturbed by the fact that the likes of Joey Armstrong is, getting chummy with the country club. But what is new? Then we have earlier Smitty and Martin were there and they run into Anastasia and she's going on and on about how Ted fixed her face after the tornado. And can you imagine having this face be marred? I mean, Jordan probably said the same thing, but here we are. Oh, wrong show. Anyway, so she's going on and Martin starts flashing back to hurting the racist and Ted had to fix him and he's flashing back and he kind of like snaps at Anastasia and he apologizes immediately and then he tells her to let him buy her meal or whatever. Then we have Ted and Ashley. They are at the break room and they're looking for snacks, but it's kind of running low. And so she says she has a list for Shanice. Maybe I can have you give her the list so that we can get approval quicker. And he was like, "What?" And so she lets it know that she knows that he told Shanice that he loves her, and she's like, "I don't think that was like." Ashley is getting too familiar because I felt like that was very unprofessional because I know like they have somewhat of a personal relationship because she's best friends with Naomi, but at the same time, he's a doctor, you're a nurse, you're at work, both of you at this time, and you having this kind of this very personal conversation with him. I just think it was just too much. And she was doing extremely too much and it was in poor taste, but I digress. But Ted, makes light of it or whatever. And so then Ted goes back to his office, and while he's in his office, Nicole comes over, and Nicole is like, "Yeah, I heard." Like, why are we going over there and saying, "Yeah, I heard"? It's just weird. Altogether, this is just weird behavior, and I'm like, ugh. So then he was like, "Yeah, and I know it's weird." She's like, "Yeah, it is weird, but this is our new reality." And so then she's talking to him and he was like, "Well, are you falling in love with Carlton or Kyle?" And she's like, "You need to stay out of my business, you crossing the line." And then he was like, "Well, I'm just asking." And they're talking and he can read her, I guess. And so he kind of gets what is on her mind and she's like, "Oh, you still know me better than anyone." And it's just so weird because I'm not talking with my ex about my current dating life. Sorry, I'm not doing it. Just not gonna happen. But anyway, so she gets ready to leave and she was like, "Well, I'll see you around." He was like, "Don't be a stranger. You can come by. I want to be the person you come to when you need to sort things out because I want to be your friend." And I'm like, "Okay. All right, so I see. Okay, I see what this is." Meanwhile, Naomi is talking to Ashley, and she has brought Ashley a gift for just being there during the whole Braca debacle. And she was like, "Well, I've been a bad best friend because I had a conversation with your mother about your health, and that was bad." And she was like, "No, you were just being a good friend." And once Danny sets her mind on something, it's kind of hard to get away from her once she wants to know something. So I no hard feelings or whatever. And then she's like, "Oh, so you know here's your gift." She opened it. It's for a spa treatment. She was like, "Well, I'll accept it as long as you go with me." And then they're there when later Martin and Smitty were playing pickleball, and Smitty gets injured. And so Kyle brings Smitty in to get checked out, and then they all congregate. But yeah, that was Beyond the Gates. Hey guys, let's talk Beyond the Gates for today, July 28th, 2026. So we started this episode with Danny and Andre in bed because what else do Danny and Andre do? And they're talking about the interview that Tia wants to do with Danny, and he is trying to pull back from that again, kind of like with the photo shoot. And she's like, okay, yeah, I understood the photo shoot, but this isn't a photo shoot. This is interview where you can get the narrative out that you want to get out. You can say what you want to say. You kind of have control over that because you're saying exactly what you want to say. And so, he's kind of coming to the realization that he's not going to really be able to talk himself out of this. So, then Danny gets a call from Nicole, and Nicole is asking her to come to the club for lunch. And so, they get dressed or whatever and they go downstairs. And again, Andre is obsessed with that gift that they received. He's looking at the card and she's like, yo, what is up with you? Keep looking at the card. She was like, somebody sent me a Maserati once. He was like, you mean the Maserati that's in your garage? And she was like, nah, this one was picked out by me. No, it's another one. People sent her a car. Like, people send her stuff. It's not that big a deal. I wouldn't eat food or drink that someone sent me if I don't know who it's from. I don't care how, you know, expensive and high class or whatever it may be. It's dangerous, especially if you don't know where it come from. You know that it didn't look like it was tampered with, but you never know what people do nowadays because people are weird. So Danny might want to be wary of that. But then we have Eva and Shanice and Ted. Eva is there for physical therapy, and Shanice has been working her kind of hard, and she is also interviewing candidates for the free clinic at Ted's office. So she goes into Ted's office and she is conducting the interview, and it happens to be the interview with Noah. And so Noah comes in and they start talking, and he tells her that she he is a musician and that he is looking for basically a day job. And she's like, seems like you like have competing interests, or whatever. But before she can, continue on with the interview, in comes Leslie. And Leslie is saying that she's sitting in on the interview because she's the one signing the checks and she has the final say or whatnot and what have you. And then he lets it out the cat out the bag that he is Cal's son. And so when he lets it out that he's Cal's son, she's instantly intrigued because of Kyle's connection with Nicole, which is crazy insane. Like, and Nicole ends up saying to her later on that you are obsessed with me, and it's giving obsession. Do you want Nicole? Like, cause girl, the way you so she basically hires him because of his connection with to Nicole, and even though he doesn't really have any experience and isn't really that all that interested in the job either. I think he just took the interview because his dad wanted him to, but I think he was in some way kind of relieved that he didn't get the job, but I digress. So, meanwhile, Naomi and Chelsea, they're having lunch and they're talking about how Kat, flipped out or whatever. And so Naomi parent traps them and she tells Kat to come meet her at Uptown. Meanwhile, Kat was at Orphe Jeans and she was there with Deanna. And, they were talking, and Isaiah comes and everybody was talking. Deanna has an exchange with him because he's accounts advisor at her school. So, they're acquainted. But Kat leaves to go to Orphe Jeans to go see her cousin, and then she sees her other cousin there. And so, Kat was like, I don't want you people to think that I'm some unreasonable kind of brat, just because that's what people often think about Kat. And I always know there's a deeper reason for whatever Kat is saying. If she's not fully communicating what she's saying, I do know that there's a deeper reason than what people may surface think that her reasoning is. So she's like, y'all don't understand how it was me being ganged up on. Okay, I'm getting emotional already. I was getting ganged up on. I didn't have a choice. It was either be looked at as some type of murderer, or give this girl a piece of my body. And so I basically had to do that. And then no one else had to. Eva just laid there and accepted the the liver. She didn't have to be, she didn't know that she was minutes or hours away from death. She didn't know that. I had to contemplate the surgery. I was conscious through it all. I had to know that something bad could happen. And then she was tortured by the dreams afterwards. Like, no one takes in account how she felt, and they never did. And then so Chelsea's like, no, that's not fair, because blah blah blah. I don't even know what her excuse was, because whatever. And so then Naomi was playing devil's advocate and said, I see both of y'all point, but that was her point. If she can get them both mad at her, then they can get unmad at each other, which they did. They decided to be unmad at each other because they were going to get unmad with one another anyway, so they might as well go ahead and do it now. And so they reconciled. Meanwhile, Danny and Nicole, they're at the club and they're talking about Nicole, because she's talking about the conversation that she had with Tad, and she's trying to work through her feelings about the relationships with Carlton and with um Kyle. And Danny was like, look, if you don't want to be in a committed relationship, basically don't be in a committed relationship. Take the time to figure out what it is that you want. She asked her, could it be that you're fearful of being committed again? Because there's a lot of trauma that I feel like that Ashton, feel like Nicole hasn't dealt with, which is quite the case. And so, they're talking, and then here comes Leslie, being Leslie, and she comes over and she's starting talking about Kyle, and she was like, and his son didn't know that you is loose in these streets. I know she didn't say that. That's not the words that she used, but that's what she was basically implying. She was like, his son didn't seem to know that you was loose in these streets. So does that mean that you are you're born Nikki again? And so Danny picks up a knife, y'all, because y'all know Danny crazy. This is the one that showed up to Bill's wedding packing heat. So she picks up a knife off the table and she's like, keep talking to my sister like that. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, wait a minute, Danny, you're doing too much. She's like, keep talking to my sister like that. And she said, and then Nicole stood up and she was like, don't worry about it, Danny, I got it. And then Danny takes the knife and puts it on Nicole's side of the table. I'm like, but then she was like, you won't tell, you all in my business because you obsessed with me. And she was like, you might as well go ahead and give up. She said, and why would I do that? She was like, that nurse Nisi ain't nothing but a placeholder. She said, oh, that's not what Ted told me. Ted told me himself that he in love with the nurse. And y'all, the look on Leslie's face when those words came out of Nicole's mouth. Oh, finally, Nicole shut her up. And yeah, that was funny. But yeah, that was Beyond the Gates for today. I will see y'all tomorrow. so that we can further discuss. Hey guys, let's talk Beyond the Gates for today, July 29th, 2026. So we pick up this episode where we basically left off yesterday with Kat, Naomi, and Chelsea down at Uptown. And they're still talking and chatting. And then in comes Grayson and Ashley. And basically everybody is like slowly trickling over to Uptown because at some point in the day, Anita is like she wants to party. She want to party. Hey, hey. Anyway, she wants to party, and so she tells the family to all meet at Uptown. But they're talking, and then Vernon is at home. Um, Waiting for Anita to come back from her first radiation treatment. And so while, he's waiting for her to come home, Martin comes over and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry I didn't call." And, he's talking to Martin when Anita walks through the door. And she walks through the door and he was like, "That was quick." And she said the radiation only took like 15 minutes. She was in and out and she's back and she's like, and she ready to party. She was dancing around the house. She was like, "Hey, get the family together, let's go. I'm ready to paint the town red tonight." She might have actually literally said that. So she goes and gets dressed and they all go and meet up at Uptown. Meanwhile, Eva and Isaiah are at Eva's apartment and she gets dressed and she goes to, they go out there going to Uptown as well. And so Kat kind of feels away because like it seems like she can go nowhere without Eva showing up. But, she doesn't make too big of a deal. They steer clear of each other all night, which is good. And, because everybody is literally there, everybody's mixing and mingling. So she has conversation with Deanna. She has conversation with Noah. And, everybody is talking. She talks to Ashley. She talks to Grayson. Everybody is like mixing and mingling because it is a public place. So, meanwhile, Danny and Nicole are commiserating with Vanessa before they get the call, and they're telling her about how they set Leslie straight and told her that Ted and Shanice are in love, and it's full of drama or whatever. And so when they get the call about going to Uptown, they ask her if she want to come too, but she was like, "Oh no, I'm gonna go home because it's been a long day." But then she sticks around because Leslie shows up and she sticks around to talk to her. But put a pin in that. Speaking of Leslie, she goes over to Ted's office after Nicole spills the beans because she has to get to the bottom of this. Ted, why won't you? Can I just say this was peak bird behavior from from Leslie today? Like I've always known Leslie to be a bird, but to see this display of peak birdness was not on my bingo card for today. But she goes over there to Ted and she's like, "Ted, I don't know why you playing around. We need to do what we need to do and give our daughter the family that she always deserves." Tell me that sorry. Tell me that we belong together. Like this is a Mariah Carey song and you gonna hold the note at the end. Girl, no, he don't want you. And he was like, "Yeah, I don't want to hurt you again. You know, what we had was what we had, but this ain't that now, and we not meant to be." And she was really, he did it. He didn't do it in a cruel way. He was very gentle, much more gentle than I feel like Leslie deserves. He was very gentle and very gentle and um sensitive to her feelings. However, the situation is what the situation is. And so she is upset and she's crying and she's like, "You, I'm not gonna let you act like what we had wasn't real." But you know, he was a man cheating on his wife, girl. That shit ain't never real. I'm sorry, mommy. I know I'm not supposed to be cussing, but it's the truth. Like it, he was a man cheating on his wife. That mess won't ever real. I'm sorry. So anyway, meanwhile, Smitty and Jacob are at the house and they're, talking about the plasma ring stuff. And when they get the call to go to Uptown. So everybody goes to Uptown. And Danny sees Chelsea and she's like, "Oh, I'm so proud of you and your sister. I saw your live stream. You did such a great job." She was like, "Maybe you should tell Naomi that you're proud of her. She's over there." Then, everybody is hugging and kissing and, just linking up or whatever. And so Danny and Naomi actually do have a moment to go sit and talk. And she's like, "I haven't heard from you." And she was like, "Yeah, I think I was just processing." She's like, "I know, mom, you don't agree what I'm doing." She's like, "Yeah, you right, we don't agree on how you should handle this. However, that does none of that matters. What matters is I am always going to be the person. I'm always going to be in your corner no matter what. I don't have to agree to be in your corner. I'm always going to be supportive of you. I'm going to go through this journey with you every step of the way, regardless of how I feel." And so that was a real sweet moment between them two, because it's it's people do have different viewpoints, but just because I don't agree doesn't mean that I can't be there for you. It Two things can be true. I say that statement and I didn't realize it was something that I live by, but I say that statement often. Two things can be true because at the end of the day, that is the truth. So then we have Kyle and Nicole, and he sees that Deanna is there with Noah. And, the last time he seen Deanna, she was acting, causing a scene at the reception for the clinic. So, he's like, "I don't think she ready to be dating." And she's like, "Yeah." Nicole's like, "Yeah, but he grown. He grown, she grown. Like, that don't got nothing to do with us." Cause, Vanessa could have questions about Noah. Like, he was basically a bum until he got a job. And I don't mean to say it like that, but basically he was. Like, he couldn't even pay for his food. Like, he's sleeping on your bed and you gotta go shack up with Nicole because your son's staying there. Like, and now you're happy that, he did get the job, nepotism. He did get the job and he can take care of himself. But you had to kick him, you had to drag him kicking and screaming for him to get the job. But then we have um, Leslie and Vanessa down at the country club. And, Vanessa is trying to check on her because she knows, she really loved Ted. And, it's probably quite a blow to her. And so she tells her that, she went over there to Ted. And she was like, "Well, why would you do that? Because, girl." And she was telling her, she was keeping it real and she was trying to be a friend to her, which I don't know why you being a friend after what she did to your best friend, your alleged best friend, but I digress. But she was really trying to give it to her real and let her know. But Leslie, you can't do stuff for certain people. And Leslie didn't take it well when she told her that y'all probably wouldn't have made it 6 months. And it's true. You would have never been able to make it. You think it was all a fairy tale, but the truth of the matter is y'all won't y'all won't make it to go the distance. It is what it is. And now she's probably reverted back to her old ways, which she ain't really changed in the first place, but she's definitely has reverted back to her old ways after this, after today, and the humiliation. Hey guys, let's talk Beyond the Gates for today, July 30th, 2026. So this was actually a pretty decent episode of Beyond the Gates. I don't have too many complaints. Well, we start this episode with Bill. He's at home and he is looking at his phone and he's looking at Madison's contact because he's thinking about contacting her, which he should. If you want to live, you would contact the doctor because he's still exhibiting symptoms, and ignoring them isn't going to make them go away. And when he is thinking about calling her, Haley walks into the room and she's like, "What are you doing? I thought we don't do no screens before until after lunch," or whatever she said. And he was like, "Oh, I was about to make a business call." And she was like, "You ain't slick, whatever." And so he tells her, "I was thinking about calling Madison. I was thinking about my trimmer that you saw me having the other day. That was like the worst one." Oh, so the symptoms are not only persisting, but they're getting worse. Okay, Bill. So she's like, "Oh, you don't need to go to the doctor because they ain't finding out nothing anyway." And she basically convinces him that he does not need to seek medical attention because the doctors can't find out what's going on with him anyway. And if it's not continuing, if it's probably nothing. You probably tired and overstressed and whatever the case may be. So meanwhile, Naomi and Chelsea meet at the atrium and they want to tag team them. Um, Naomi is supposed to deliver the logic, and Chelsea is supposed to pull at his heartstrings, something that they used to do with him when they were little girls. And so she's like, "Yeah, let's go." So they go over to Bill's house and, they just walk in. They would just walk into their mother's house. I don't see why they wouldn't just walk into their father's house. But Haley has a problem with it. And so Haley is mad that they just walked in, but they get to the point of why they came over there. And while they're talking to her, of course, they're opposite of what she wants. She wants to keep him away from Madison and the doctors. And so she's like, "Absolutely not, blah, blah, blah." And she keeps interjecting while they're trying to, speak with their father. And so she keeps interjecting. So what they do is they're like, "Can we talk in private? Because this is a family matter." And then Chelsea is like, "Yeah, so you can leave." And she's like, "You ain't gonna come in my house and tell me, blah, blah, blah. Y'all can get out." And then she was like, they were like, "You can't put us out our father's house." And she was like, "I think I just did," or whatever. And they looking at Bill like, "Bill?" And Bill is like, "Just so the things won't escalate, I think y'all should leave." Oh, you ain't got to worry about, see, if it was me, you ain't got to worry about me coming back. I'ma leave and you ain't got to worry about me coming back. How about that? But anyway, so they leave and they end up going to the country club because Chelsea was supposed to meet Kat. So then the three musketeers link up and they start comparing notes about all the things and inconsistencies going on with Haley. Kat get out her iPad. She got an evidence list. Chelsea said, "Girl, put that thing away. This ain't going on the podcast." And Kat is like, "Yeah." And she ain't wrong. And so they start talking and comparing notes. And Naomi tells about the ultrasound. And Chelsea tells about seeing her, in heated discussions with Sammy, aka Randy, and who Danny walks up and she was like, "Oh, Sammy." Vanessa said Sammy's name is Randy. So they all put in A, B, and C together real quick because foreheads are better than one, obviously. And so they're piecing together. And so Danny was like, so what Haley did now? She said the latest was throwing them out of their father's house. And she said, and where was Bill when this was happening? Standing right next to his wife? She said, oh, hell no. Daddy was pissed. You gonna let this? Okay, it's one thing you want to cheat and you want to cheat and marry your mistress and all of that, but then you gonna mistreat my kids because of your little. Yeah, any mother would be pissed. She did what? She said he done lost his damn mind. Cause yeah, he has. Mhm. Yeah, like what? I don't even know what Danny might do now. Cause the look on her face was like, oh, so this is the games we playing. See, this is why you shouldn't be opening your legs to him, Danny, because he ain't no good. He did that to the two girls that y'all made. But meanwhile, Bill and Haley are back at home, and Haley's trying to talk him into going to the island again, St. Bart's again. And so she kind of does. And then he was like, well, you got your sugar. Now I need to give you your medicine. She was like, what's that mean? And he was like, I need to talk to you about how you spoke to my daughters. Too little, too late, because you already done threw them out the house. I digress. But anyway, so then we have Ashley and Shanice, and they're all chatting, not doing work as per the usual. And Andre and Ted, they are in Ted's office, and they are planning Ted's getaway with Shanice, and he's planning a trip to New York, and he asked him for his help with picking some champagne. And when he asked for the help for the champagne, of course Andre starts flashing back to the weird gift of champagne that they got delivered to their house that they don't have any clue, but he probably has a clue where it came from. Meanwhile, before her cousins get to the club, Kat was having brunch with her brother, and they're having a nice conversation, and they start talking about, potentially getting a new stepmother and or a stepfather, because their parents are moving on. And she asked Martin how he felt about, their parents possibly getting remarried to other people. And he was like, he has mixed feelings about it. Like, he wants his parents to be happy. And Kat finished for him, but you kind of wish they could be happy together. Yeah. 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 So Kat and Martin still, wish that their family could be a family. Meanwhile, Nicole and Kyle are in bed after missing all of their morning obligations. And, they're in bed. And here comes Danny because she's looking for Nicole. She comes upstairs to her bedroom and she's just standing in the door. And then she starts cracking jokes. Then she comes and sits on the chase because what else do you expect from Danny? And so Nicole puts her out, and then, Kyle goes to take a shower, and Nicole goes downstairs, and she's like, you getting put out because you're an unwanted guest. She said, I'm not a guest, I'm family. And she was like, no, but I need to talk to you, whatever. So when Kyle leaves, Nicole goes upstairs and gets showered and gets dressed for her day, and she comes back, to see what Danny wants. And Danny wants her to help her be able to have civil conversations with Naomi, and that kind of like put her foot in her mouth, like to make Naomi feel uncomfortable about her decision or anything. And Nicole was like, well, pause, think, and then speak. Don't just blurt out whatever, you know, comes to mind. But yeah, today was a pretty good episode. I liked when Danny and the girls all were together, and then they let the bomb drop that Bill put the girls out of her house. I mean his house, because of Haley, because Danny didn't like that. Danny didn't like that one bit. But I'll see y'all tomorrow so we can round this thing out. Bye. Hey guys, let's talk Beyond the Gates for today, July 31st, 2026. So we start this episode still at the country club because we saw yesterday that Kat spilled the beans about Bill and Haley throwing Naomi and Chelsea out. So Danny is highly upset, as we saw at the end of yesterday's episode. So we pick back up there, and Danny is headed over to Bill's house, and Naomi and Chelsea jump up and they're like, "Mom, no, don't go over there. Dad is, his health is already precarious, and we don't want to cause, him to have any relapses." And Naomi starts discussing about how when um when he when he had his last episode, he was talking with Mike, and it was a pretty tense exchange. When that happened, it was pretty intense. And so because that tense exchange precipitated that particular in- incident, they didn't want her to go over there and, cause Bill to have another setback or whatever. And Danny was like, "I'm not going over there to do nothing to him. I'm not trying to kill him. I'm going to let it be known that this is not what it is." And then Naomi and Chelsea was like, "Kat, help us out here," which is Kat's mouth that, kind of told it anyway. So Kat was like, this seems like a Hamilton situation." And Kat was like, "Yeah, I can't be of no assistance." And then Danny was like, "Yeah, I'm gone." So Danny leaves and goes to Bill. Meanwhile, as we saw, Bill told Haley that they to needed to talk about, how she just interacted with his daughters. And she was like, he was telling her that you can't, throw my kids out. My kids are always welcome wherever I am, or whatever the case may be. And she's like, "Of course, I can't believe you would think that I would say otherwise, but they need to call." And he was like, he kind of pushed back on that too. But then she said, "Well, if they call, I can remove myself from the situation. And so then we can avoid like situations like this altogether." And he was like, "Okay, yeah, that'll work." So then he was like, "But still, you could have avoided this altogether because you didn't have to say what you had to say. And you could have given us privacy to speak alone." And she was like, "Oh," so she gets mad and throws a fit, and she decides to leave. But she had to leave anyway because we saw Randy was texting her, and she was supposed to be meeting up with Randy, but she couldn't because she had to deal with this situation. So she uses that as an excuse to go leave. So she leaves, and Danny comes over, and Danny throws her purse, and when she throws her purse, her sunglasses falls out on the floor. Put a pin in that for later. So she goes in there and she start going off on Bill, and Bill's like, "Hey, can you chill? I already took care of it with Haley, whatever the whatever." But he ain't tell her that Haley and him came to the conclusion that the girls needed to call first before coming over. But whatever. So Danny, is going off, but then they end up, parting peacefully. And so when Danny leaves, he makes a phone call and he's like, "Where are you?" And he was like, "Okay, well, stay there." And he said, "I'm on my way." I didn't know where he was going. So he leaves and he actually goes to Naomi's house where Naomi and Chelsea are. They had went when Danny left the club, they ended up going to Naomi's apartment because she had to wait for someone to come over and do something. So Naomi, Chelsea, and Kat went over to Naomi's apartment. And so they were sitting there and they were talking, and Kat and they were talking about, the different aliases of Randy and how suspicious it is, and they kind of want to brush it off and not like go think about it too much or go too deep into it. But Kat was like, look, all of this is, you know we should look at it, think about what we could uncover, the three of us. So Kat was like, well, I got a meeting, because she was meeting with Deanna. So I got a meeting, but so I'm gonna leave. So Kat leaves and she goes to Orphe Jeans. Meanwhile, at Uptown, um, Randy and Haley meet, and he gives her more poison, and they start talking about, the altercation between the girls, and she was like, I just want this to be over already. And there he's like, well, you got to chill and be patient, whatever, whatever. So she leaves to go back home. Randy goes to Orphe Jeans because he wants food. So when he goes to Orphe Jeans, Deanna comes in because she's waiting for Kat, and she sees Randy and she's talking to Randy or whatever. And so they chatting. And so while they're talking, Kat comes in and she sees them talking. And so her and Kat handle their business, and you know, they're about to part ways, and Kat is like, so who was that guy? I saw you give him a hug, but I didn't recognize him. Because Kat is nosy, but Kat picks up on things. She picks up on everything. She knows and sees everything, and she's very inconspicuous when she wants to be. So she's like, oh yeah, that's my dad's friend Randy. She said, oh, Randy. So then she decides that she's not going to leave Orphe Jeans right there. She gonna sit at the counter and she gonna kind of like surveil Randy a little bit. Cat be on to something. Meanwhile, Haley goes back home, and when she goes home, she sees Danny's sunglasses on the um floor, and so she's mad. First, she was like, I know he ain't have no random girl up in my house, and then she realizes um that they're Danny's. And so she takes a picture and she texts it to Danny, who was at the country club talking to Vanessa at this point. And she's like, oh, I found, it may have been worth losing my sunglasses. Shout out to De'Ara, because they were her brand sunglasses. Shout out to De'Ara. But it was funny. It was hilarious. I was like, oh my goodness. So yeah, um then Bill goes over to Naomi's house, and when he goes over to Naomi, he's talking to her and Chelsea, and he kind of reprimands them for their part in the argument or whatever. And so then he tells them, you may we found a solution, call before you come. And then Chelsea's like, well, maybe we don't go at all, because yeah, I gotta call you to tell you, like, your parents, you just pop up on your parents. I'm sorry, we do. Even as grown adults, we just pop up on our parents, like, make an appointment. But he explains that Haley can make herself scarce, and then Chelsea's like, tell the truth, this was Haley's idea. And he was like, what does it matter? He was like, yeah, okay. And that makes it worse for Chelsea. She ain't feeling that, like. And so he kind of like begs them to, try and make it work, and to work within the boundaries or whatever. And they do agree, Chelsea begrudgingly, because he says, they've been getting along very well lately, and he wants to keep that up. But, you know, he they are his priority, but he is married to Haley, so he has to keep the peace in his home as well, I guess. I don't know, because it's the whole throwing your kids out because of your wife. I And your girls aren't wrong. trying to get you to take care of your health. But then at the same time, it's very hypocritical of Naomi, right? Because Naomi doesn't want anyone to tell her how to handle the BRCA gene.